I think he missed an opportunity.
Oh, is that right?
I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech.
Right, because that's exactly how he was portrayed in the media during the campaign, as warm and calm and embracing. Yeah. It's not like the media just constantly fear-mongered about how this guy was going to bring Islamo-communism to New York City. Like, that in itself is such a whitewashing of the past couple of months. Like, Zohran Mamdani made an acceptance speech on election night. We caught the tail end here on our stream. We were busy yapping ourselves, and so we missed most of it on the stream. It was about a 22-minute speech, and we just have a little supercut of some of the highlights, which we will show for you now.
Toppled a political dynasty. I wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name as we turn the page on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few. Tonight we have spoken in a clear voice. Hope is alive. Hope is a decision that tens of thousands of New Yorkers make day after day, volunteer shift after volunteer shift, despite attack ad after attack ad. More than 1 million of us stood in our churches, in gymnasiums, in community centers, as we filled in the ledger of democracy. And while we cast our ballots alone, we chose hope together. Hope over tyranny. Hope over big money and small ideas. Hope over despair. We won because New Yorkers allowed themselves to hope that the impossible could be made possible. And we won because we insisted that no longer would politics be something that is done to us. Now it is something that we do. We will refuse to allow those who traffic in division and hate to pit us against one another. In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light. Here, we believe in standing up for those we love. Whether you are an immigrant, a member of the trans community, one of the many black women that Donald Trump has fired from a federal job, a single mom still waiting for the cost of groceries to go down, or anyone else with their back against the wall, your struggle is ours too. And we will build a city hall that stands steadfast alongside Jewish New Yorkers and does not waver in the fight against the scourge of anti-Semitism, where the more than 1 million Muslims know that they belong. Not just in the 5 boroughs of this city, but in the halls of power. No more will New York be a city where you can traffic in Islamophobia and win an election. This new age will be defined by a competence and a compassion that have too long been placed at odds with one another. As has so often occurred, the billionaire class has sought to convince those making $30 an hour that their enemies are those earning $20 an hour. They want the people to fight amongst ourselves so that we remain distracted from the work of remaking a long broken system. We refuse to let them dictate the rules of the game anymore. They can play by the same rules as the rest of us. Together, we will usher in a generation of change. And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
So that was the big line, to turn the volume up. That was like the viral line. The speech as a whole, that was about 4.5 minutes of a 22-minute speech, was pretty much exactly what I would expect, which is a lot of Obama-like flourishes and, platitudinous stuff about hope and participation and representation, paired with, some nods to, the like DSA economic program about the billionaires, using, people's resentments to get them to punch down. And it's pretty much exactly what I would have expected. It was a fairly boilerplate speech. Nothing really surprising.
I mean, he did basically tell Cuomo to go fuck himself, which frankly, given the campaign he ran, he had every right. He had every right. That was pretty mild to make the point. You can't win a campaign anymore on Islamophobia. What? He's not within his rights.
Oh, no, of course. No, of course. I mean, that's why I included it in that piece there, because I just wanted to do a fair representation of the stuff of what he said. There was a lot of it sounded like something Obama would have said. Some of it sounded like something Bernie would have said, and then he put, he infused his own background in there as a Muslim, and basically told Cuomo to fuck himself. So, that's basically what I would have expected. Now, Van Jones found this to be a big missed opportunity, very polarizing, as if anyone could take this piece of shit seriously. Like, it's amazing how this guy still considers himself someone who's like, suited to provide any kind of commentary, given what an absolute, just transparent sellout he is.
Well, he would definitely get a slot at the Patrick Bet David roast with his dead Palestinian baby stylings.
Yes, with the baby stylings, exactly. So about the speech, first of all, let's give Zoran his due. Let's hear what he has to say, because he clipped this video reaction.
You got to give the guy the credit. He defeated Democratic Party royalty. The Cuomo, that's a royal family in our party, defeated them. Defeated the oligarchs and rich folks who jumped in to try to stop him, and then defeated Donald Trump. So the triumphalism that you see there is earned. A year ago, nobody ever heard of it.
In this case, very handsy royalty.
Who I'm hearing from,
little handsy.
feel a great deal of relief and pride, and they're fired up, and they feel like they've been silenced for too long. So that speech appealed to some, but I think he missed an opportunity.
Is that right?
I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech.
Right, because that's exactly how he was portrayed in the media during the campaign, as warm and calm and embracing. It's not like the media just constantly fear-mongered about how this guy was going to bring Islamo-communism to New York City. Like, that in itself is such a whitewashing of the past couple of months. Like, hey, this guy was so great, he was so warm, and that's exactly how he was portrayed. That's not how
exactly how he was treated by goons like you.
Right.
It's kind of funny. His dad looks like an Indian Giuliani.
Yeah, he does. He does kind of look like an Indian Giuliani.
And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight.
There are a lot
of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going?
No.
Is he going to be more of a class warrior, even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent.
Now, who are you talking to when you say, is he going to include me, or is he going to be a class warrior? You're talking to what? Billionaires?
Rich people.
Rich people who are worried that he's not going to include them. The guy went out of his way, in a very debasing way, I would say, to, gesture that anti-Semitism is this real crisis in New York City now. He goes out of his way to do that because he figures that's the price of doing business, right? It's cringy when he does it.
People.
But yeah, and to comfort the rich people. Like,
he has a McKinsey alumni going around to the corporations and the banks right now to reassure them.
Exactly.
Like, who could you be speaking of when you speak of yourself being invited in? What exactly is it about you that you feel is alienated?
Yeah, who did he leave out?
The fact that you're a completely corrupt tool for the establishment. I mean, that's really, when you boil it down, that's what he's talking about. Will corrupt tools for the establishment like myself get called out by Mamdani, or will we get invited in?
Exactly.
I think his tone was sharp. I think
his tone was sharp. Oh, his tone was sharp.
Using the microphone in a way.
Using the microphone in a way. Yelling. He's a vocal coach
and
now.
that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here, where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight, and there was some other voice on stage. That said, he's very young, and he just pulled off something that's very, very difficult. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he missed an opportunity to open himself up tonight, and I think that will probably cost him going forward.
No one's writing him off. He just won. He's the winner. What do you mean I wouldn't write him off? He's the winner. Yeah. That was his victory speech. He doesn't need you to not write him off. You can write him off all you want because you're a loser, and he's the winner. I wouldn't write him off after he just makes a victory speech.
I'm sorry. Van Jones is particularly disgusting because we have gone through, I've said this again and again, nobody I've spoken to, even people who might be more cynical about Mamdani than I am, and I'm pretty cynical like Jimmy. We talked about it last night. Nobody disagrees that this was a grotesquely and uniquely racist campaign that was run against him. For somebody like Van Jones, a black man, to not understand why he might have shown a little peak in his acceptance speech, that 5 minutes that we showed in the final debate, where the moderator, Sliwa, and Cuomo each took turns basically calling him an anti-Semitic jihadist, demanding that he answer for his supposed crime of being a brown Muslim. That was one of the most uncomfortable things I've seen. I'm not even a fan of Mamdani, and I felt bad for that guy, man, having to be up there, and you could see, and this is something that is so much a part of the black experience, so often spoken about by black people, the cognitive dissonance of having to please white people and to hold in your feelings for fear you're going to get accused of being the angry black man. So you have to constantly hold everything in and make yourself passable. Otherwise, they're not going to allow you to have the things that any white person would take for granted. Like, to not see that in his story and to whore yourself out the way he does on CNN, reinforcing these narratives, especially because, as we've pointed out many times, he knows better, man. He got fired from the Obama administration for being a radical.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. And I'll add some stuff. But on that note, first of all, in terms of tone policing, you talk about a guy who had to recently apologize for making jokes about dead Gaza babies on the Bill Maher show, if you remember this. Bill Maher is a pain in the ass with copyright, so I didn't feel like prepping the video since it's kind of tangential. I made a comment on Real Time with Bill Maher about the war in Gaza that was insensitive and hurtful. That's when he says, the people are seeing dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, Diddy, dead Gaza baby, ha, 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 right? So it's interesting that he would tone police someone a month, almost to the day after that scandal. Also, this was a good find. This got about 1.5 million views. In 2003, Van Jones recorded a rap album where he called for an end to the Israeli occupation and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Nowadays, he makes fun of dead babies in Gaza for late-night TV laugh tracks. Let's take a look at this rap track. I'm assuming this is his track because that's what it claims, and it was not community noted, and it got over 1 million views. So I'm assuming this would have been community noted if it wasn't what this guy says it was. But it's unmistakably his voice. So whether it was his track, it's definitely his voice that was used in a track.
Palestinian people being respected. And at this point, the end of the occupation, the right of return for Palestinian people, these are the critical dividing line, global dividing line questions of human rights. We have to be here. No American would put up with an Israeli-style occupation of their hometown for 53 days, let alone 54 years. We see violence against poor people and poor people of color within the U.S. border, at the U.S. border, and beyond the U.S. border. And you see U.S. tax dollars funding all of it. And so we have, this now global struggle against a U.S.-led security apparatus and military agenda that impacts people here and impacts people around the world. And I think that we need to see our problems as linked.
There you go. Wow. Look at that. So
how do you sleep at night?
Here's Van Jones. I don't even know when this is. This looks like it was older, like in the 90s. Video of Van Jones before they shaved his head and connected the electrodes. Yes, here's Van Jones. And it's really interesting what he says at the very end of this video.
Do that in 1960. This dudes could do that in 1970. This dudes could do that in 1985 and 86. In 1993, when we have the United States
1993
building a death camp, a concentration camp for black people who have done nothing wrong but get sick and want justice. That's all they've done wrong. If we can't close that death camp, if this generation cannot prevent another Japanese American internment in our lifetime, we should all get haircuts and go get regular jobs and give it up.
He says we should all get haircuts. I guess
he was that guy, yeah.
We should all get haircuts and get regular jobs and give it up. And what happened? He got a haircut, he got a regular job, and he gave it up. Really interesting stuff. And yeah, of course, Van Jones, look at that. Of course he understands what a despicably racist campaign they ran against Mamdani, and his response to the guy's victory speech, where he's like a little salty, a couple times over a 22-minute speech, was almost all conciliatory gobbledygook, in my opinion. I didn't think it was a particularly great speech. He gave a shout out to Eugene Debs at the first line. That was kind of cool. And then he did the thing about the billionaires. Other than that, it was basically an Obama-esque kind of speech. He feels he has to go out and tone police him after that. And as far as like the campaign that they ran against Mamdani and people litigating Mamdani, and this would certainly apply to, Van Jones's critique or should I say response to this speech that he has here. When you look at the kind of campaign they ran against him, especially in the home stretch, especially down the home stretch with, Sid Rosenberg and all these freaks having these racist rallies outside of the World Trade Center as if he's a jihadist or a terrorist, like that is just vile, bigoted, propagandistic, which is reason enough to oppose it. It's also warmongering because the dehumanization, not just of Palestinians, but of Arabs more broadly, is what has been used to manufacture consent, not just for the Greater Israel Project, but for all of these post 9/11 wars, right? The clash of civilizations framing, the portrayal of Muslims and Arabs as less than human, as incompatible with Western people. That is just bigoted, propagandistic warmongering. So whether you like Mamdani or not is really not relevant to whether or not you should, in my opinion, defend him against that. It just in the same way there's a comparison here to Russiagate. When the Democrats and the media were Russiagating Donald Trump, we spoke out again. I mean, we didn't have a platform at the time, but we opposed it on the grounds that it was bigoted, propagandistic warmongering meant to manufacture consent for hostility with Russia. And what was the most annoying thing in the world? When liberals would say, well, it sounds like you like Donald Trump. No, I don't like Donald Trump. I'm not debunking Russiagate because I like Donald Trump. I'm debunking Russiagate because I hate bigoted, propagandistic, warmongering bullshit. And that is what these pieces of garbage did to Mamdani in the 11th hour of this campaign.
Of course.
And I feel like we had a responsibility to push back against that. Don't forget, this guy started his campaign talking about affordability, interviewing Trump voters about why they voted for Donald Trump because they couldn't afford groceries and rent and, gas bills or whatever, heating bills.
And also and then, making all the food halal.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That was the other thing.
And then these creeps bring this fight to him, saying, well, he's an Islamo-communist. So it's like if the Zionists are going to pick that fight and wage that fight in such an ugly, propagandistic, hostile, and yes, warmongering way, then do we not have some responsibility to fight back? Like what? Right. Like is like because we're not huge on Mamdani, Does that mean we should just all
everybody
sit
does
back?
it. You're
Everybody
doing it
does
now.
it. It's just a tongue twister thing. Because we're not big on Mamdani, does that mean we just kind of sit back and let the Zionists take this propaganda win? Because that's what it is. Like, if they were to beat him, if all that stuff were to work, that would be a major propaganda victory for the Israel lobby. So to not engage at all would be to just say, well, we're just going to forfeit that to them. We're just going to let the Zionists have this big propaganda win. So I guess we'll just sit this out. Like, that really doesn't jive. And that's what they did in the last few weeks of the campaign. And Van Jones was totally silent on that. I mean, to my knowledge, he wasn't out there criticizing Mamdani. I don't watch CNN, so I don't know. But he was totally silent on that. Absolutely silent on that. Didn't say, hey, you know what? This is really not fair what they're doing to this guy. Just because he's a 34-year-old Muslim man doesn't mean he's a terrorist. Completely silent on that. Nothing at all. And then the minute his victory speech ends, he says, well, he missed an opportunity there to be unifying. He had the wrong tone. Fuck you. Eat shit. Eat shit. What a piece of garbage.
Yeah, I got into this a little with Jimmy too. They were so determined to go full racist that they ignored the woke stuff, which I think actually probably would have been more fruitful. They could have gotten into that. They never grabbed the DSA video about bussing people in for free trans surgery. That because it just did not fit the narrative they were determined to push. As soon as they went down that road, they could never really bring up the jihadi thing effectively again. They decided to just not talk about their go-to issue, the transes. These people love to talk about that. Yeah, maybe not Cuomo because he's running as a de facto Democrat, but the Sid Rosenbergs and company, the David Rems and company, to not want to talk about that because it did not fit this narrative that they were absolutely obsessed with, that he's a Muslim extremist. Anything that didn't fit that, even things that I think were probably more politically potent, wouldn't touch it. I went up to Rosenberg at that rally, and I brought that up. He did not want to talk about it. So, yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Please clap.